special guest here today, Dr. Marvella. We are discussing the toolkit, the self-care toolkit, pandemic edition.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so normally how I start these things out is I have my guests to introduce themselves. Okay, so say your full name and introduce who you are and what you do.
Okay. My name is Marvella Bowman, Dr. Marvella Bowman. I have my PhD in clinical psychology. I'm licensed in New York and North Carolina. And currently I work at a prison, actually two prisons right now, but providing psychological services to the offender population. Over time, I've always worked with populations that typically cannot seek services themselves. So I used to be adolescents in like the group home or residential housing setting, and then I moved on to more prison, juvenile justice and prison settings. So that's what I do now.
So how long have you been working with this population?
Well, in the prison since I got to North Carolina, so about 2016. It'll be 4 years this year. Wow. It'll be 4 years in August.
Okay. And I want to say we met last year through a friend of a friend. And I always say that, you know what, people talk junk about social media, but I have met the best people on social media, and you happen to be one of those individuals. So thank you so much for being in my life.
Oh, thank you.
And for being such a great resource. I felt like it was important that we discuss this topic, right? Yeah. My situation is this. People say, oh, Alicia's not doing anything because I'm home, right? Oh, she can do it, you know? But as this thing has unfolded, I'm literally doing more than I was doing before the pandemic. Okay, you know why? Because number one, my cousin brought two of her god kids down here for us to homeschool.
So additional students,
including my own, right? I'm the lunch lady too. I'm also doing my own online classes with the middle school.
Wow.
Right? So it's like
it's more hectic. Yeah.
More hectic, right?
In general, when there's a stressful situation happening, even if we're doing the exact same thing, it's more difficult to do because there's this like life-altering, life-changing circumstance surrounding us. So it would be, even if people who are in the same routine, like for myself, I'm still working my same hours. I don't have extended hours, but I did have to pause, I would say about last week, where I just started feeling anxious. And it's just because everybody else was anxious. I'm not an anxious person. I'm not anxiety prone, but everybody else was anxious. So the level of anxiety among the population that I work with, among the staff, you know, everywhere. And then, you know, we'll talk about it more as we talk about some ways to reduce stress, but social media is both a blessing and a curse because, you know, you might see something funny that relieves you and lightens the mood. And then the next post is another stat that's just like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So we have to really, we have to determine what we're going to actually pay attention to and focus on in this time. And don't take for granted that the stressors right now are just multiplied because of what's happening in our nation and in the world.
Right. Everything is just kind of magnified, right? Absolutely. Somebody was saying it's the little things, like the compilation of all the little things that really just, you know, really get you off track. So let's just jump right in and talk about what are your suggestions on how this thing, you know, how we navigate this? We're in the second week? Are we in the second week? Listen, the days just
the days just meld together, right? Yes. So as far as like the first beginnings of social distancing, I believe we are on week 2 going into week 3 now. And I would just say the first thing, we started talking about it with social media, but the first thing I would definitely say to do is decide what you're going to focus on. Like all of us have the power to decide what we're going to focus on. So there's got to be times where you're not, you know, stuck to social media, or you're not stuck to the news, or just reading things in a frenzy, just trying to gather all this information about coronavirus or statistics and numbers and things like that. depending on what your role is, there's not too many people who need all of that information, right? So if I'm not the
This is
epidemiologist,
true.
like
This
I'm
is
not the
true.
epidemiologist trying to solve this, or I don't need to provide these numbers to the CDC. So I don't need to know everything. I don't need to know everything.
Wait, pause. This is a good point. Because we've been doing this, you're like my, I don't know, fifth or sixth guest. And I haven't heard that, right? You don't need to know everything.
No,
That's
it can
good
be
because
detrimental for you to know everything.
wait, Dr. Marvella, Dr. Bowman, just wait. Because everything out there suggests you need to learn as much as you can about this. You need to be educated about this. You know, you need to protect your family. There's this urgency to know everything so we can be safe and healthy.
I
And
mean,
you're
educate
saying,
yourself on how to keep yourself safe and healthy. So I think it's great to have like hand washing techniques. Like I wish people would post more of that. Like I don't need to know the death toll in Italy as much as I
okay,
need to know what can help me
okay,
keep myself and my family safe. So if I need to, we all know at this point, stay away from people, social distancing, 6 feet away, certain objects hold on to the virus longer. So washing your hands, not necessarily touching doorknobs, things like that, like the practical things that
uh-huh,
can help me implement change in my life. That's what I need to know. I do not need to know what Donald Trump is saying every day or at every press conference. I don't need to know what's happening to the, you know, split second, moment by moment information from each county in my state. I don't need to know that.
okay,
That's not going to help me do anything differently.
okay.
It will
That's,
probably just
that's a,
increase fear.
yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we choose what we focus on. I would say that's a very huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I would say, you kind of touched on it before as you were saying how now things, it's just more going on. Everybody needs a schedule. I think those of us who are parents that are homeschooling your kids, or an additional kids in your case, a schedule is important to keep them on track. As adults, we can't just behave as if, oh, well, I'll just,
Wing it.
yeah, like whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to do. It is helpful in times where we feel as if we don't have control to gain control of something. And the things we do have control of, in addition to what we can focus on, is how we spend our time. So it could be helpful. And, everybody's different. So to the level to which you do this can depend on what's comfortable for you. But I do recommend, and I've always recommended this for all of my clients that are capable, to make a schedule for themselves. So, and remember, I work with an inmate population who doesn't have the freedom to do much, which is kind of what we're all in right now, right?
Yeah.
So, they can't get up and go for a walk when they want to. So they have to schedule that within yard time, or they can't just, make phone calls when they want to. So they had to, there's different things that as I talk to them about gaining mastery of something, just being able to schedule your day is something that you can master and get that down to a T. So if you decide I'm going to exercise from this time to this time, what you can do is, as you continue to do that, if you gain mastery in a certain thing where, okay, and I'm not a workout guru, so this is just off the top of my head, but like I know I can't do push-ups. If I decide that by the end of the next couple of weeks that I want to do 20 push-ups, then each day I'm mastering the amount that I say I'm going to do. So
Okay.
those little things that we can control and say at the end of it, okay, I've gotten this or I've mastered this. So in combination with making a schedule to retain some of that feeling of and sense of control, we can also build some mastery in certain things. And for those who, are really used to just being on social media or being on the computer, if you want to become them, find some information that is not fear provoking and master that. So if I wanted to become an expert in, I don't know, say bird watching, maybe I can go on YouTube and look at birds. Like that could be calming and something that I have know nothing about, but by the end of this, I could know a lot about birds. So
Okay.
anything like that.
That's good. Find something that is not fear provoking and become mastery at that. That's good. That's a good point. Okay. You got any more for us?
Of course, I can go on and on.
Give us one more
Okay.
and then we'll switch gears.
Okay. So I talked about focusing, I talked about scheduling, talked about mastering things. This is probably one of the simplest things, but so many of us do it wrong. And so this might be something where we can like look this up and do research on how to breathe properly.
Oh yeah.
A lot of us do not breathe properly. I remember when I was probably in middle school, I saw some little article in some magazine that talked about diaphragmatic breathing, and we didn't call it that, but like now that I know what that is. But one way they said to test it was just to see when you inhale if your stomach rose more than your chest. And at that age, yeah, my stomach was not bigger than my chest at the time. But so that was one way to see it. But just you try to expand your the diaphragm more than your lungs. So inhaling through your nose and out through your mouth, and making sure you're filling the lungs, and then exhaling, expelling all of that air. And that's what can reduce your heart rate. That's what can reduce anxiety. I've done that with people in the midst of panic attacks. I actually developed some anxiety attacks some years ago at a job where the pace was like this. And I thought literally I was having a heart attack. I thought I was developing asthma. I was about to go to the doctor. I had to stop one day and say, okay, what's happening? Dr. Marvella, like, what are you going through? And really just had to start breathing, like stopping, taking a moment and breathing properly.
Yeah.
And it sounds so simple. And every time I tell people about that, they just like kind of look at me like I'm crazy. But if once we try it,
I know it to be true. Okay. Because I realized when I was in the classroom full time or in any stressful environment, I realized that I was just like a stress ball, and everything was just waiting until I could get out of the situation. So whether it was 8 hours, 10 hours, I was just stressed up like this. And all the entire day, all I was thinking of is when I could get home or when I could get out of it. And then I could actually relax. Okay. And then I understood this one other girl that I had interviewed a couple of years ago was talking about breathing. And I was like, what? Breathing? What? And that's when I began to look into that. And I realized throughout the whole day, I wasn't even breathing really properly, right? Yeah. I was just kind of like half breathing. And I've learned
the oxygen that you need, your brain's not functioning.
Yeah. And I've learned throughout the day to be mindful and to take those moments to breathe and say, Alicia, it's going to be okay. You're not going to die in this situation. You can breathe, right? You can breathe through these kids driving you bananas.
That is what you have to do.
Yeah.
There's different techniques. You mentioned mindfulness. There's entire different types of mindfulness that you can engage in that has to do with different thought processes. They're all relaxation techniques. So like looking up things like that, if you're somebody who's prone to like, oh, I need to look up the latest, what's the latest news? Like go just take some time and Google relaxation techniques or Google mindfulness strategies, things like that. All of those things really can be helpful.
That's a good, because what you're doing as we talk about this, you're putting practical tools in their hands and giving them the power to do so, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is what you can, here you go. This is what you can do.
And it doesn't need to switch up your whole way of doing things. If you're the type of person who likes to be on social media, I'm not saying to go away from it, but maybe what you focus on can change. Maybe you put something different in the search engine and go a different route than you typically would. So
you're so smart.
Though changing habits takes a while, so you don't want to wait to relieve the anxiety. So if you're used to getting on the computer and being on newspaper sites, and maybe just Google something else, or if you're used to being on YouTube or Facebook or whatever your preference is, just find something else. And it can be, they have so much relaxation exercises on YouTube where you could just press play, close your eyes, and let it talk you through that method. And there's different ones. If you're a visual person, imagining different sights and sounds that might be good for you. Or if you're a more practical person who doesn't like visualizing things, something like a progressive muscle relaxation is really effective. So
here is my issue. This morning, I did one of those. I got on and it was landscapes.
Okay.
And sounds. And what I ended up doing was spending like 3 hours. Way too long. But it was just like this peaceful place, and
Yeah,
I didn't want to leave it.
that's funny. So setting a timer might be a good idea for you. Because some people have the opposite problem. Some people start getting anxious about like, wait, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? And start like overthinking that. So you have to find your balance in those things. So if you're the type of person who might go too long, you might want to set a timer and say, okay, I'm only going to do this for half an hour. Some people might need to start with only 5 minutes because they're going to second guess. I don't feel relaxed yet. Is this working for me? I don't know if this is working for me yet. Am I doing this right? I've had both types of people, and both can benefit from it if they continue to try it.
Right.
And always remember, whatever it is that you're attempting as an anxiety reduction technique, it may not always be the most effective immediately, but it takes time and practice. So just figuring out what works for you is fine. And if you're somebody who's home and has time to do that, then take the time to explore and determine which ones are good for you.
Right. Okay, great. That was really good. Everybody I interview, I'm always just I'm like, wow, this is really good information. Okay, so let's talk about you and what you have going on right now, because you just have some good news. So tell our people about your good news.
Okay, so it was crazy how things kind of all worked out and came together at this point, but I released a book this month, and it's a book of devotionals. I'm a Christian as far as my religion goes, and I just self-published this book. It's called Content, Consistent, and Conformed, a book of devotionals for the believer with a heart after God. And it's a topical devotional. So very often we'll do devotions. I'm kind of bad at, I've gotten better over time, but I'm kind of bad at doing the daily ones. Like I'll skip a couple days and need to catch up. This devotional is more about the topic. So there's like one for different seasons and times of year, like Christmas. There's a section about building your relationship with God. So it's about the topics that might come up in your Christian walk. And so you can just pick where you want to go and read it. And there's a scripture for before you read it and after you read it. You can journal around it. You can do whatever else you want to do. It's just, it came from the way it was produced is from years and years of me sending my friends emails and different notes. And I used to make posts on Facebook and just different things I used to send to friends and family. So I collected all those things, put it together, and am releasing it in this way now, so everybody can be my friends and my family by getting the book.
Yes. So tell them how they can get it.
So the way you can get it right now, and I wish we could have done this earlier, but today is actually I'll probably give our folks in Body Confidence an ongoing deal for this. But if you go to www.marvellabowman.com/3C book, so the number 3, the letter C as in cat, BOOK, and that will take you straight to where you can purchase the book. It's right now $15. I sign and autograph those copies. That promotional sale is supposed to be ending today, but I could definitely extend it for my friends in the body confidence movement. And yeah, it's $15 right now. At some point, I'm selling it myself, and so I'm going to the post office and things like that. At some point, I'm going to move it over to Amazon, which is how I published it. So it's going to transition to that at some point, but that's how you can get it right now. Either way, my website, www.marvellabowman.com, is how you can find anything having to do with me. I do plan to offer some psychological consultation services, as well as I also dance as part of my ministry. So ministry workshops and things like that will be available when we can be around each other once again. But right now my focus is letting people know about the book, and hopefully we'll have some opportunities to talk about it once a number of people get it and have something that they might want to say about it.
Good.
Yeah, like a little online book club if we want.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Remember that, and we'll circle back. Okay? We can definitely put that on the calendar and circle back. I love that idea. That's good. Yeah. That's good. Okay. Anything else you want to share with us?
Not really. Just in these times, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of information that we can hear, but just really try to center yourself. For those of us who have your religious belief or your higher power, for me, that's Jesus, and just going back and focusing on him. There's so many opportunities right now for building community in this time of what seems like we have to be so socially distant, but because of really the miracle of technology, we don't have to be that distant. So
Mhm.
do reach out to people. I'm kind of somebody that tries to rely on myself and I can do it, but rely on God and the supports. We weren't meant to do this alone. So definitely reach out to others.
Okay, and they can find you in Facebook. Are you on Insta? Do you have a group in Facebook? Because
I have,
I know you
so
did those. Do you have
I
a
don't have a
page or
group. I
what?
have my page. It's like a business page.
Okay.
It's just Marvella A. Bowman. I believe I came onto the group as a person because my personal account is M. Alex Bowman, which either way you can add me, it's fine. But the business focused stuff is going to be on the Marvella A. Bowman page.
Okay.
And yeah, that's the best way to reach me. My Instagram is Maury B 918, so MAUREYB 918. I am not great at using Instagram. My friends will send me messages and I'll get them 3 days later and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Usually it's just funny memes and stuff like that. So thank God it's not anything important. But yeah, I don't really use it as like a business thing. But if you want to see what I have going on, like I post this little lipstick that is named after my goddaughter that I got.
I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, this is it. It's called Hannah by Croy, Croy Cosmetics. So yeah, so little things going on. I like to help other people as well. So if there's something that anybody is doing, I definitely am the person that will promote it and share the information because we are a community. And I think the best way we can support one another is to really actively support one another, not just say, oh, pray for you, I'm there for you, but to really support.
And I know you just did that in our group because we did something we had never done. We sowed a seed into one of the individuals who got laid off, and you were one of those people that was like, yeah, I'll give. Yeah. So we appreciate that. We appreciate that so much. Actively, walking out our faith and sowing the seeds and doing those things that really make an impact on others. So we appreciate that so much. Okay, darling. Well, I think that is it. This was a wonderful interview. I'm going to try to get it loaded in the next couple days.
All right.
And I appreciate you so much. And so tell me this. Okay, we're going to close with this. What do you do, right? Mm-hmm. What are you doing for self-care? Considering like your clientele, like they don't have, like, do you practice social distancing? How are you doing that at work?
So in the prison, we are quite a distance away from our clients anyway. Like our setup has never been to like be in close quarters. So I'm like behind my desk, they're like across the desk. They're probably more than 6 feet away just because I like to be able to see their whole body when I'm talking to them.
Okay, good.
So that's a personal thing. Some people do have them sit a bit closer to the desk, but I prefer that they be farther back so I can see all of them. Right. And I mean, for the most part at work, we do a decent job of staying away from each other, but every so often people come in for the hug and the handshake and things like that. I'm just not a huggy person at work. I definitely am at church and just about every place else, but at work, I've always been very professional. Some people might consider it standoffish. I'm from New York and this is North Carolina. It's a completely different kind of thing. So I've been able to keep my distance pretty well.
Okay, good.
And as far as self-care, like I am really content to just like go home and watch TV. I was watching Tiger King right before we got on. Everybody kept talking about it. I was like, let me check this thing out. What can be so fascinating about this?
And you will never get those hours back from your life ever.
But but those things, that's that stuff that takes your mind off of everything else, whatever the stressors are. That has nothing to do with my reality. I'm never going to be involved in trading animals or selling. I'm not going to do that. So, I don't have any skin in the game. It's just interesting. Something interesting to watch.
I watched that. I was like, why did I watch that mess?
I'm enjoying it though. But you know what?
I don't watch reality TV. And at some point I had to just really start fast forwarding it. I'm like, oh Lord, I got to fast forward this.
I'm typically doing like 5 other things at the same time. But I will say the reason why I do like things about criminology, and clearly you see the line of work. People with personality issues. So all of those people have really interesting personalities. So
Very much
It's
so.
interesting to watch.
Yeah. Okay, darling. Thanks so much. We appreciate you. Bye, guys.
Thanks so much.